Hi, Mom.
Hello. Hello.
This is Mom. It's Donna Neary Williams. Aunt Donna to some of the people watching this thing. Or great Aunt Donna.
Or Grandma.
Or Grandma. And, the way I've been starting with everybody is like start at the beginning, right? So, for me, I always think of 8 and 9. Being 8 and 9 is like the beginning of kind of life. And that's what I ask people. What were you like at the age of 8? What was the world like? Just what did you think about things back then?
It's interesting you say 8 and 9, because a lot of things I say, oh, I was about 8 or 9 when this happened. So it seems like my life began at 8 or 9 also. 8 and 9 was a very happy time for me. We lived at 72nd Street. I was very entrenched since we moved there when I was ready to start first grade. So I'd been there a couple of years. I had some really nice friends.
And who were those? Who were those guys?
Well, one I still have, my dear friend Karen Walsh Stevens. She lived around the corner on Coles Avenue. We lived on 72nd Street in a 2-flat that my parents owned. Typical Chicago brick 2-flat with a nice big porch, and with concrete steps, and so you can find many like that in Chicago. We had the Illinois Central just a half a block away, and the Sylvesters lived across the street. Marlene and Colette and Diana Durini lived in the same building across the street, and Judy Bradshaw lived next door. And we had a driveway between the Judy and our house. We used to try to string the string and then the can that you pretend talk to. Now you guys can talk on cell phones so easily, we sort of pretend. And we played a lot in the neighborhood, had a lot of independence, and we had a big empty lot next door that had a lot of sand. We were only a block and 2 blocks probably, 2 blocks. So I have a block to Coles, a block to South Shore Drive, which was Route 41, that everybody had to thread through to get around Lake Michigan. And it was just a 2-lane street road that we crossed by ourselves to go over to Lake Michigan and swim. At the end of the block, at the end of the street, 72nd Place, all by ourselves, and we could swim all day long, all by ourselves. But there were other people there, no lifeguard, but people watched out for everybody else, and nobody ever drowned. And it was very carefree. I said to Claire that I never got to go to summer camp. My brothers did, because it was available to them, because the guys from Camp Chippewa came to St. Philip Neri and promoted camp. So they went, and they learned how to swim. I never really learned how to swim very well, because the swimming pools that we did go to were just massive kids that you never could swim at. And Lake Michigan's not a good place to learn how to swim. You just played in it. And we played and played all day in Lake Michigan, because there were rocks that you could play in and swim around and jump off of. But you didn't learn to swim. And if I'd gone to camp, I probably would have learned to swim. So I said to Claire, she's lucky she gets to go to camp. But she, of course, already knows how to swim, because she got a swimming pool in her backyard. She swims like it. But I'm sure she learns other things that she would never have a chance to learn. So anyway, and then the girls used to play with high heel shoes. And we had bags of high heel shoes, so we would walk around with our bags full of high heel shoes and play dress up. And we'd play on the porch, and the porch was a great place to play. Just play. We played a lot, with our imaginations.
So, what was it like growing up in the family of Tom and Mary Neary?
It was very secure growing up in their house.
What does that mean?
Um, you just always knew where you stood. They were rock solid people, and they always meant what they said and said what they meant. If we did something wrong, they punished appropriately. They followed through. They had a lot of good sense about them. My dad was kind of the quiet man. He enjoyed things. He wasn't a gregarious Irishman. You know, he wasn't the kind of Irishman that you tend to think about. Being, you know, the jokester, the storyteller. He was a really fine man, but he wasn't real easy to talk to share things with. I always wished I could talk to him easier, more personally. And I really noticed that when I was working in dental hygiene and patients would come in that would be maybe my dad's age, and I'd find, golly, I can talk to these men easier than I can talk to my dad about personal things. You could talk to him about events, current events, things like that. But to talk to him about, you know, kind of personal things, boyfriends or things like that, it just didn't seem like, I didn't feel like I couldn't. It just didn't flow. But my mom, I could talk to her about anything. I was very close to my mother. I was close to Dad, and I loved him dearly. But he was a gentleman. He was a wonderful gentleman. And he wasn't standoffish. You know, it's just, do you get a feeling at all about, well, you knew him. And of course, you knew him as your grandfather, and I think you had certain feelings about him that maybe weren't shared with me. Because I loved him dearly, and I never was afraid of him. There was nothing.
I was afraid of
Yeah,
him.
that's what.
But this isn't about me.
I know.
Yeah.
That's so. You don't share that. You know, just yesterday, there was an incident where someone was trying to get up on the whatever that's called, the board, and leaning over, and Mike was not. He was being very gentle, and, you know, and saying, "Well, you got to stand up," leaning over, and I finally said, "You've got to be more firm." My father would say, "For Christ's sake, stand up," and she'd stand up for sure. You know, the next time she'd be afraid not to stand up. But you know, that's kind of the way he was. You know, he said it like it was. For Christ's sake, stand up. And there was one incident when he was teaching me to drive, and you know, and there was this intersection, and I think you know the intersection, just a block away from our house, where Yates Avenue comes in and South Shore Drive made a curve, and Exchange Avenue comes in, and 71st Street comes in. And there was no stop sign. It was just every man for himself when I was learning to drive. And I'm hesitating, and my father reached over, put his foot on top of my foot, and said, "For Christ's sake, when you start to go, go." And I'm like, "Oh!" And I went.
What was it like growing up with all those brothers?
Well, I was never treated as a princess, but at least I never had. Um, I never had competition of a sister, but I always didn't have the companionship of a sister, which I sometimes missed. Um, and I can remember one time at the dinner table getting tired of listening to the sports talk and interrupting them and saying, you know, I want to talk about my captain ball game at school today. This is in high school. Yeah, I really, I'm not a sports person, and captain ball is a stupid thing we played in gym. But it was like, I am so tired of your basketball games and that kind of thing. But
How did that go?
yeah, well, they made a lot of fun of me. But it was fine. It was fine. I liked my brothers. Bill and I were really close in age. It was amazing because we were so close in age. Tom seemed a lot older, and he's really not that much older. But he's 2.5 years older is all. But he seemed older because Bill and I were so close. Bill and I would argue a lot, and Bill is really great because he can make black sound like white. He can argue that black is white and make it sound correct, and that could be very frustrating. And it was, so, but that was just the experience. We'd argue, we wouldn't fight. Bill did all his fighting with John. And John and I tried very hard to be John's companion because I realized he was kind of an odd man out, being he's 6 years younger than me.
So you tried to take care of him a little bit?
I tried to include him, and and so I would wrestle with him and that kind of thing. And he was, like I said last night, he's a nice little brother. He was a good kid, really nice kid, until he got me into a headlock that he almost killed me. And then I said, okay, that's over. Can't do that anymore. You've grown up too much.
Yeah.
We can't do that. But it was fine. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed having the brothers around. They weren't macho men. Thank God. They weren't into every single sport, and they weren't into like they didn't play hockey. They didn't play football. Basketball was kind of a gentleman's sport, and it was nice. They weren't overly macho guys. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't envision. I always felt sorry for Carol Williams in the house with, her 4 boys and Larry and hunting and all the big sports and that. I always felt Mom and I and the 3 boys and Dad, we were all kind of pretty well balanced.
So looking back over, the span of your lifetime, what was your favorite kind of period or the best time?
I have enjoyed my whole life. I feel very blessed. I really have. My whole life has been wonderful. And I read or heard. I heard this on the radio. I think it was at the turn of the century, that they interviewed centenarians at that time, women. They interviewed women and men, and they asked them, what was the worst decade of your life and what was the best decade of your life? I wish I had read it. I heard it on the radio, and I only grabbed one answer, and that was women. And the best decade of their life was their 70s So that's the decade of my life I'm in right now. And I can't say it's the best, but it's pretty darn good. The 60s, maybe the end of the 60s, into the 70s. And I kind of figured out why. And it's that we kind of paid attention to our finances. We have 4 wonderful kids. We're very blessed. We have kids that are really good. They're doing okay. They're healthy. They have really great kids. We are healthy. We're living
Yeah, but you said the late 60s,
Into the
into the
70s.
70s. So what about that period did
well
you enjoy?
because we are, I'm developing some pains, so I was pain free in that time. That's why I kind of go back to the 60s and 70s. I'm pain free, but all those other years, you have some concerns and some worries. We kind of end up worry free. We can travel, so so that's you kind of have arrived. You.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like that decade.
Oh no, I'm talking age.
Age. Late
Age.
60s, early 70s.
Of age.
Yeah.
The age, the decade of your life.
Yeah.
Of your life. Otherwise, grammar school was fine. I like grammar school. The nuns I had in grammar school were nice, and the nun I had in 3rd grade, 7th, and 8th grade was a dream. She was a redhead. Of course, she was nice. She was a neat gal. Then I went to high school. In high school, I enjoyed high school. Some people, high school was just miserable for them. I wanted to go to South Shore. No, I didn't want to go to South Shore. My brothers went to the public high school. Mom and Dad wanted me to go to the public high school because they wanted to save money for college. And I said, I really want to go to the Catholic school with my girlfriends. So they said, okay, you can go to the Catholic school. So I went the freshman year, and no boys in freshman school. I think maybe I want to go to public school. No, you made your decision. Now you stick with it. So I stuck with it, and I'm happy I stuck with it. I enjoyed the school. I had good friends. I made nice friends, a nice bunch of friends, and I enjoyed it. So I finished up at Aquinas. I like that. Made the decision to be a dental hygienist. That was a good decision. I really enjoyed my career at dental hygiene. Found that Marquette had dental hygiene. I was going to go to Northwestern, but I could go away to school if I went to Marquette, because Northwestern was in Chicago. So I went to Marquette, loved Marquette, came back, found a couple of nice guys to work for who were excellent. My life has worked out. It's been a bowl of cherries. It really has. And then I had met your dad through my good friend Bill Shropshire, who'd been my boyfriend in junior year in high school, who stayed my friend. And had you, Laura, Lisa, Aileen, easy babies. I mean, my God, I have no complaints. Life's been good.
Well, so a question occurs, a question came to me, and I don't know if it has to do with what one has to do with another, and I haven't really asked it of anybody else, but last night we had a service for Uncle John. This is for the tape, for your youngest brother. And just, some quick reactions to that event, doing it with the family around, what it means, how you feel about it. I mean, it's your brother.
Yeah. Well, that's a bittersweet thing, because I'm not sad that he's gone, because his life at the end was so unhappy that I was really glad God took him, and took him really fast. I think in some ways God loved him enough to take him fast like that, finally. And I think that all worked out really nice. He didn't want that. He did not want that to happen. He didn't want anybody to come to Florida, so he didn't want us to come to Florida. He did want his ashes put in Tampa Bay. And he didn't want anything, but I think in the end he would have really enjoyed what happened at the beach, where he did spend a lot of fun times with his Lawler's Punch.
With his what?
Lawler's Punch. He used to make the Lawler's Punch down on the beach.
No.
I think he would have enjoyed that, and I thought it turned out very nice, nicer than I thought it would. You know, I think the kids all gathering, I hope they took something away from it, as far as family goes.
So I think we're at about time. And so the way I've been wrapping these things up is, like, future generations will watch this, hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
and like in terms of legacy and what you would like those people to think about you. What do you want them to know about you as a person? And
I would like them to know, I guess, that I just was a good, sound, loving, stable, strong person. And one of my goals in life, which I don't necessarily think I've achieved, was to be an interesting old lady. And I don't know that I'm quite an interesting old lady. It was not to be a sweet old lady, and I know I'm not that. But just that I was a caring person, that loved her family, loved her children, loved her parents, loved her brothers. That's about it.